The New York Rangers star players can't get anything going. The Panarin Mika Kakko line has a rough night, and Will Cuylle scores a goal in the Rangers' 5-2 preseason loss to the Devils. All this and more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 912 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So I think the best news you can take out of a game like this, obviously a 5-2 loss for the Rangers against the Devils. They get swept by the Devils in the preseason for whatever that's worth. The best piece of news here is the fact that this is still the preseason and none of these games count. About a week from now, actually less than a week, because the NHL season starts Tuesday. The Rangers don't start until Thursday. But basically, everybody goes back to 0-0, and the preseason will be a footnote in hockey history. Everybody will forget about it. It'll be on to the regular season, and people are going to be focused on the games that count. That's the good news. There were some other positives to take out of this game as well. We'll end on those today. Always like to try to be glass half full on here, but we can't even come close to saying that this was a good night for the New York Rangers, because it very clearly was not. To just about anybody, I would say that, watch this game. And I got to start out with a little bit of a call out to the Ranger star players who I just did not think played well, did not generate any kind of offense. I suppose defensively they did okay. You might look at that initially and think like, well, the Devils scored 5 goals. How can you even say that? Well, most of those goals were on the power play, and don't worry, we're going to talk about the bad penalties that the Rangers took in this game that led to the power play goals, but they scored 3 goals on the power play, and then they also had the empty netter. So besides that, you only gave up, if you're the Rangers, 1 even-strength goal, and you scored 1 even-strength goal. So defensively, I guess the Rangers did okay in this game. Jonathan Quick, another mixed bag for him, and I know some Ranger fans are getting worried. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. But as far as generating offense, the Ranger star players did nothing of the sort in this game here against the Devils. We'll start with the big five that kind of tend to make up the Ranger top power play unit, and the 5 guys that you really look for to create offense on this team. You've got Panarin. He ends up with 1 assist. He was a -1, just 1 shot on goal. Vincent Trocheck had basically no stats, just zeros across the board, including an even plus-minus. He did win 56.3% of his faceoffs. I had Chris Kreider, who had 1 assist. He was a -1, 1 hit, 2 shots on goal. Mika Zibanejad, also a -1. He also took a penalty, 3 hits, and 3 shots on goal. Adam Fox, he had the goal, -1, 1 hit, 1 shot on goal, and also committed a turnover near the Devil blue line, which led to him having to take a penalty, and the Devils getting a power play out of it. I mentioned, Panarin had the 1 assist, Kreider had the 1 assist, Fox had the 1 goal. All 3 of those, they were all the same goal that was scored, obviously, by Adam Fox, and they all occurred while the Rangers had a 5-on-3 advantage, which, I mean, hey, they all count, right? You're up 5-on-3. You've got that power play. It's a great opportunity. You still have to execute. You still have to make it happen. So give them some props for scoring a goal there and finally breaking the Ranger long power play drought that's been happening in this preseason. But for the most part, just kind of a nothing night for the Rangers star players. And it's not just, the fact that they didn't get a lot of points. It's they barely created any scoring opportunities. The Panarin, Mika, and Kakko line in particular, I thought scuffled quite a bit in this game. I was pretty excited to seeing this trio in action. And they just didn't really do a whole lot together. And I've been saying, the last couple of episodes here, got to have Mika centering the first line on opening night. Got to have Kaapo Kakko, I think, as the top line right winger. So that's 2 out of 3. And based on what we saw here, just not a whole lot with Panarin on that line. So give me Kreider. Give me the combination that we always see. Kreider and Mika, they seem to always end up back together in one way or another. And give me Kakko almost by default as the top line right winger, because I can't put Lafreniere there right now. And Blake Wheeler, I mean, you could go that route, but I'd like to see Kakko get a chance again with Mika and with Kreider, a duo with which he has success, at least at times, during last season. So, but as for this night and this line of Panarin and Mika and Kakko, like I said, I was really excited. Did these guys have possession of the puck for longer than like 2 or 3 seconds at a time the entire night? I'm not so sure that they did. The first period, it felt like none of them ever touched the puck. Like they just didn't have possession for a single moment that they were out there. There were at least a few positives. If you look deep enough here, you could pull out a couple positives for this line. Kakko in the second period made a really nice move, went around a defenseman, kind of created a scoring chance for himself out of nothing, but wasn't able to convert there. The Devils ended up taking a penalty a little bit later on that same shift. Mika Zibanejad drawing a slashing penalty against former Ranger Brendan Smith. The third period, this is as close as they came to scoring. Scramble in front of the Devils' net. Panarin and Mika were both in there. They both had chances, but could not put the puck in the net. We also saw, and part of this is the result of a injury to Tyler Pitlick, who is day-to-day with an upper body injury. We saw the Rangers kind of mixing their lines a little bit. Trocheck was out there for a minute with Panarin and with Kakko. We saw Kakko with Trocheck and Cuylle. That was actually the trio that was on the ice when the Rangers scored their first goal, which came courtesy of Will Cuylle. More on him and more on that goal in a little bit. But yeah, overall, just not an impressive night for this line of Panarin, Mika, and Kakko. And again, it's a line that I was really looking forward to seeing. Be very curious to see if they're all back out there together again against Boston tonight, or if you look to go in a different direction. It's the preseason, so I'm good with all this line shuffling and, changing lines in the middle of the game, between games, whatever it might be. But I'm just hoping that eventually the Rangers do settle in to some line combinations to start the season here. At times you can almost become like a little bit desensitized to line combinations. 2 years ago, Gallant's first year here, I didn't think his line changes were all that obnoxious. I thought for the most part he would stick with lines so long as everything was working. And even if it wasn't working for a while, he would let them figure it out. And then last year, I thought he got really trigger happy when it came to the line combinations. And it gets to a point, whether it's Gallant or anybody else around this league, if you've got a coach that's just constantly changing the line combinations, like I said, you kind of become desensitized to it. There's games last year where I'm seeing the Ranger, the lineup during pregame rushes and everything, and you just see the line combinations. It's kind of like, all right, those three together, sure, why not? Let's give that a shot and see if it works. I hope we don't get to that point this season. And again, this is the time to mess around with the combinations and try to find the ideal, trios for the start of the season here. But again, I do hope they have something in mind, and they're looking to, they have a week. They have a week to figure it out between the end of the final preseason game and the start of the regular season. So hopefully they do that and take advantage of that time and go with some line combinations that they feel good about going into the season. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to continue talking about, pretty much everything that happened in this game. Jonathan Quick, another mixed bag at best for him. A lot of really, really bad penalties by the Rangers, and it cost them dearly in this game. I'm happy this was not a regular season game because, my God, so many bad, unnecessary, undisciplined penalties, and it led to 3 goals by the Devils, and that's the difference in this game. So we're going to talk about all that good stuff in just a second. First, though, we do have to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank everybody, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And so, going to keep everything rolling here. I do want to mention for the everydayers, though, you guys are definitely going to want to stick around. We got the preseason finale a little bit later tonight, Thursday night, against the Boston Bruins. Rangers could really use a win. They could really use a good performance. Like I just mentioned, there's a full week between tonight's preseason finale and the Rangers' regular season opener at the Buffalo Sabres. So if they lose this game and go 1-5 in the preseason, it's not the end of the world, but that's a long wait to get into these regular season games. And obviously, you go 1-5 preseason or not, you can't really be feeling that good about it. But I think a strong performance against the Bruins, who presumably will probably go with a lot of their top players tonight, that'll bode well, and it'll just kind of increase the vibes around Ranger Nation right now because they're not ideal at the moment. So again, I want to get to the bad penalties first. So let's talk about Jonathan Quick. A bit of a rough game, stopped 14 of 18 shots. He's not getting the help that he needs right now. And again, the Rangers taking so many bad penalties, that put them in a bad spot. Devils obviously have a lot of dangerous players. And I don't think the Devils really had like an elite power play last year for, as many offensive weapons as they have, but obviously they can still hurt you. And that's exactly what they did on this night. So the Rangers were shorthanded quite a bit. And, there's one where I believe it was Heischer scores a goal, right from the slot, completely unguarded. There were a couple other instances where I thought the Devils were getting to the front of the net too easily, either with the puck or without. And when they didn't have the puck, nobody was kind of moving them out of there. So that didn't help either. The Jack Hughes goal, that was an absolute snipe. I'm not sure there's really any goalie in hockey that would have stopped that one. It was just a perfectly placed shot. Like I said, just complete snipe into the top shelf. He didn't get any help, but he's also, not really making the big saves right now. He had a couple of good saves in this game. There were a couple of blocker saves that he made that I thought really stood out. But be that as it may, it kind of reminds me a little bit of last season. Obviously the Rangers didn't get off to an ideal start. They won their first 2 games, but after that, really kind of a mixed bag and some really lethargic efforts in some of those games. And something that we were seeing quite a bit was this kind of this vicious cycle of Igor not having his A game and the Rangers not doing anything to help him. We saw a little bit of that, in this game between the Rangers not helping Quick and Quick, just not being able to make at least a couple of the saves. Not easy saves, but the kind of saves that, if he's on his game or as good as he's going to be at this stage of his career, I think he can still make those saves. So, just a vicious cycle of the goalie not having his A game and not really getting a ton of help from his defensemen and his teammates. I'm not going to give up here, though, on Quick. We kind of went through this last year when it came to Jaroslav Halak. I don't really think that many people were talking about it in the preseason, but once it got to the regular season and Halak was like 0-6 to start the year, a lot of people were panicking. Goals against average was bad, save percentage was bad, but when you look at his game-by-game, results and his stats game-by-game, he only really had 2 clunkers in there. So I never really thought that Halak was as much of a lost cause as a lot of other Ranger fans did. And I'll say the same thing here. Jonathan Quick, I think it's only fair that we give him a chance. We're talking about an absolute legend in hockey, and I realize clearly on the very back 9 of his career at this point, and not the goalie that he once was. But let's at least give him a shot here. Let's at least let him play in a couple of games that count before we start declaring that, this is a disaster and they got to go with Garan and this, that, and the other thing. So we'll give him a shot. Like I said, I don't know that he's been as bad. He hasn't been good, obviously, but I don't think he's been as bad as his stat line might suggest in the preseason here, if you were just happening to glance upon it. Okay, so the bad penalties. This is what I really wanted to get to here. Pretty much the Rangers took 5 penalties in this game. 5 power plays for the Devils. The Devils go 3 for 5 on said power play. And I would say 4 of these power plays were either undisciplined, unnecessary, or something along those lines, just flat out bad. We had Mika Zibanejad slashing Kevin Ball. That happened in the first period. Ball had the puck around behind the Ranger net, and Mika's chasing him and twice slashes him. And a little bit of a ticky-tack call, but it's a slash, in a literal sense. He slashed him, so can't go crazy about that. And, obviously, Mika's trying to keep up with him. He's trying to prevent him from scoring. And obviously, one silver lining here is at least it happened in the Ranger zone. It's not like they took an offensive zone penalty here. But, it's Mika Zibanejad defending Kevin Ball, noted offensive juggernaut Kevin Ball. We shouldn't be having to take a penalty to slow this guy down. That's not to say he's a bad player. It's no disrespect, but call me crazy. I don't think Kevin Ball is going to be a point-per-game player this upcoming season. Anyway, second penalty on the Rangers, too many men. What do you even say? There's never a good time to take a too many men penalty. There's never really an excuse for it. I realize, hey, 82 games, it's probably going to happen at least once or twice, right? Even to the best teams and the most disciplined teams in the league. But it's just never an ideal penalty to take. It's never a penalty where there's really any excuse for it. They took the too many men penalty. Just really can't happen. And this was the one that led to the first goal of the game for the Devils. So Bratt ends up taking a wrist shot from the twine just 9 seconds into the power play, and the Devils go up 1-0. Third penalty on the Rangers. This was on Barclay Goodrow. He cross-checked Tyler Toffoli, and this happened. It was either in the neutral zone or just into the Devil zone. It was right around the blue line there, but regardless, not a good penalty. The two of them were kind of going at it and kind of jostling a little bit, and I'm sure there was a little bit of smack talk going back and forth, but once Toffoli was down on the ice, Barclay Goodrow gave him a pretty good cross-check in the shoulder there, and they're going to call that. I know there's some bad blood and some animosity between these two teams, and you want to win the physical battle and all that stuff, but it's just not a good penalty. And it's another power play for the Devils, and they end up, I believe, scoring on this one as well. Yeah, that was the goal that made it 3-1. So how about the fourth penalty? This one is the result of a turnover by the Rangers in the Devils zone. Seemed to be a little bit of confusion at the point as far as which Ranger was going to take the puck. Adam Fox was there, and the Devils skate away with it. He sure's got the puck. He's close to, breaking away. Fox, to slow him down, reaches out and hooks him. So the penalty itself isn't terrible because you're trying to prevent a dangerous player from getting a breakaway opportunity. It's somewhat understandable, but what led to it was kind of the bad part. The Rangers turning over the puck there and letting the Devils take it right away from them, kind of getting caught a little bit flat-footed, which obviously was not good. Then the fifth penalty on the Rangers. This is the only one that didn't really seem to, it didn't really bother me all that much. It was against Brennan Othmann. He caught his opponent with a high stick, but it was a situation where he was along the boards, he delivered a hit, and both of them kind of just turned at the same time. Othmann had his stick up high after the hit. You're responsible for your stick and everything, but, there wasn't a whole lot that could be done here. Got him in the face with his stick, so no real issues with that one. But, yeah, of the 5 penalties, 4 of them were either, again, undisciplined, unnecessary, a mental mistake, something along those lines, and that's something that, you just don't want to see continue to happen as we head into the regular season here. That's another thing I'm looking for tonight in the game against the Bruins. Hopefully the Rangers can clean this up and, stay out of the box, at least for the most part. No more than 1 or at the most 2 penalties in this game. That should be a goal for the Rangers. It's at least a goal that I'm setting for them for this game against the Bruins. And speaking of special teams, we just talked about all the penalties and all the power play goals that the Devils are scoring. Rangers are now 1 for 16 on the power play in the preseason. As I mentioned in a recent episode, when I mentioned that they were 0-12, they're now 1 for 16 after going 1 for 4 last night. It's not as terrible as it seems because a lot of these power plays are happening, without Panarin out there, without Mika out there, in some cases without Kreider out there. No Ranger has played every single game of the preseason, and so a lot of these power plays are occurring, and the Rangers don't have, the A unit. You've got guys like Goodrow and Bonino on the power plays, so 1 for 16 here is not quite as bad as it sounds, but the Rangers had all their guys last night, and they had their top power play unit, the one that they went with pretty much all season last year, Mika, Kreider, Panarin, Trocheck, Fox, and they weren't really able to get anything going. I know they score on the 5-on-3, but that's another thing here. So the Rangers scored on the 5-on-3, but it was also the result of a lucky bounce. I'm going to elaborate on that power play a little bit later in today's episode, but, more so than just the fact that they went 1 for 4. The other 3 power plays, not including the 5-on-3 there, they just didn't look dangerous. They didn't really set anything up. There were no Kreider redirection attempts. There were no great one-timer chances for Mika Zibanejad. Fox and Panarin, they tend to be the facilitators out there. I didn't really see any impressive passing from either one of those two. They did okay just kind of getting possession in the offensive zone, but they did nothing with it. Even that at times is a little bit of a struggle in this game. So just a rough night for the power play. And there's a lot of things I'd like to see the Rangers do better tonight against the Bruins. But that's certainly one of them. One of many things they got to do better is just do a little bit better job on the power play. I'm not even going to get overly concerned with oh man, they went 0 for 4 again, or they went 1 for 5. Let's just look a little dangerous on the power play. Let's get some things set up. Let's get the puck at the net. Let's get some shots on goal at the very least. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. I want to continue talking about this game and just, breaking down Will Cuylle's goal because that was another positive, coming out of this game. Will Cuylle scoring again as he attempts to, hang on to a spot on the opening night roster here. We'll see if he's out there on opening night. We're going to do all that good stuff in just a second. But first, we got to let everybody know today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon, Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, so let's just go ahead, keep everything rolling here. I wanted to end on a couple of positives because, you see a game like this and most of it was not good, but you look close enough, you dig deep enough, you can pull out a couple positives from this game. I thought Erik Gustafsson, with the exception of him not clearing the Ranger crease during a Devil power play, overall, I thought he had another game, and I feel like he's been one of the bright spots for the Rangers this preseason here. Obviously, look, he's got to go out there and go full bore because he's competing with Zach Jones for that sixth and final defenseman spot. I think it's pretty much Gustafsson's at this point, but we'll see. He had a big hip check in this game, sent his opponent down to the ice. He drew a penalty in this game, and overall just looks poised for somebody who's out there with a new team and a new environment. I mean, I guess he's used to it at this point, right? Erik Gustafsson, a big-time journeyman, has played for like 7 or 8 teams at this point. I'd have to look it up to know the exact number, but Erik Gustafsson looks good, looks comfortable in his new surroundings, so that's good to see. There was also a report that, the Rangers still expect Filip Chytil to be out there on opening night, which is obviously a good thing. Chytil, I thought, was one of the few Rangers that really stood out in a positive way in the preseason opener against the Bruins. Just looks like a confident, poised player out there. And obviously, we're keeping our fingers crossed that he'll be out there because the other Rangers star players haven't really produced a whole lot in the preseason here. They probably need all the help they can get, learning a new system and whatnot. So Filip Chytil becoming a big-time, important part of this Ranger team. And once again, hoping he's out there on opening night. While we're talking about injuries, I should also mention Tyler Pitlick left this game with an upper body injury, was quickly ruled out to return. Laviolette said they would evaluate him more tomorrow, which now means today. It's Thursday as I'm recording this. So we'll see what happens there with Tyler Pitlick. Fingers crossed that he's all right. Also, the Rangers, I mentioned this a second ago, but they finally scored a power play goal in this preseason. Now, granted, it took a 5-on-3 opportunity. It took Peter Laviolette calling a timeout to rest his top 5 power play players. They almost gave up a shorthanded goal while they had a 5-on-3. Marino stole the puck after a bad pass by Panarin and almost had a breakaway, but Mika kind of kept up with him, and Marino got a shot away, but the save was made by Quick. So that was unfortunate, but not too long after this, the Rangers end up scoring a goal. And a little bit of a lucky bounce here. You've got, Adam Fox trying to pass across the top of the goal crease to Chris Kreider on the other side. Instead, bounces off a glove of a Siegenthaler. That's who it was. It bounced off Siegenthaler's glove. He'd gone down to the ice, went off his glove, went into the net. So a little bit of a lucky bounce there. Cut the Devil lead down to 3-2 at the moment. But it is a power play goal. We'll take it any way we can get it at this point. Also, I mentioned this a second ago as well, but to elaborate a little bit more, Will Cuylle scores another goal. A couple quick passes by the Rangers. This is actually the shift before he scored his goal. So you get a couple of quick passes, and then you've got Blake Wheeler passing from the high slot in deep to Will Cuylle. Cuylle redirects the puck, and Vanacek is there. He just barely was able to stop this puck from going in, so that was unfortunate. But this line stayed out there on the ice, and Cuylle immediately after this scores a goal, which at the time cut the Devil lead down to 2-1. The Rangers at this point had Kakko, Cuylle, and Trocheck on the ice together. There was a shot that went wide by Braden Schneider. He ends up with the primary goal on this one. Kaapo Kakko with the secondary assist. But yeah, Cuyle's there in front of the net. It was interesting because we saw the Rangers actually give up a goal like this earlier this preseason where somebody shot wide on the other team and the puck bounced off the boards right behind the net, came in front, and unfortunately led right to a goal. But this time, the Rangers get the lucky bounce. Braden Schneider, like I said, shooting wide. Puck comes back out in front. There's Will Cuylle on the doorstep to stuff it home. There was some resistance by the Devils, but he was able to sweep it into the net. And Will Cuylle, we've talked about this. He has not been afraid to go to the net, to set up shop there throughout this preseason. He's come really close to scoring on a couple of different redirections and a couple of stuff-in tries. This is now his second goal of the preseason. He could easily have more than that. Like I said, he's come close on a couple of stuff-in attempts, but he gets one here, and that's obviously nice to see because, Will Cooley's really been working hard and trying to kick the door down, as we've been saying, to get a spot on this opening night roster. And honestly, the longer this happens, and I haven't seen an update on Pitlick yet, so we'll see if he's ready to go on opening night, but I'm starting to feel like Will Cuylle is going to be out there on opening night. Between him and Othman, again, Cooley's my pick. I think Othman has more long-term upside than Cuylle, but Cuylle's the guy that seems a little bit more ready to go right now. 4 games with the Rangers last season, the rest of the year with the Hartford Wolfpack. And again, I know people love Brandon Hoffman. He didn't really do a whole lot in this game. Wasn't really all that noticeable. And, this game was obviously being played with a lot of pace, a lot of speed. I still think the best way to go with Hoffman is to start him in the AHL. We've seen the Rangers rush some young forwards into the NHL. Hasn't always worked out. Let's give Brandon Hoffman at least a couple of months in the AHL. Let him cook down there. And when he starts to light up that league, then you have a decision to make, and you look to call him up as soon as you can. Or if the Rangers are, playing badly and they desperately need a spark, he could be an option at that point as well. But regardless, we'll see Brandon Hoffman at some point this season, but I think it would benefit him, once again, as I've been saying, to start the season with the Hartford Wolfpack, as tempting as it is to just throw him out there with the New York Rangers. So this is something else that I mentioned very briefly earlier in the episode, but again, not counting the Devils' empty net goal, the score of this game, 5v5 play, was 1-1. The Rangers obviously did not produce a lot of offense, but they defended fairly well in this game at even strength. Not a ton of great Devil scoring chances when it was 5v5, so that was solid. For what it's worth, the Rangers, they outshot the Devils 21-19. They also hit the Devils 26-18, 154.2% of the faceoffs. These are tiny little wins, and obviously doesn't really mean much when you lose the game, but just pointing that out that there are positives. When you dive deep enough, you look hard enough, you can find some positives. And the final positive that I want to throw out there for everybody, this is still the preseason. These games do not count. The Rangers are learning a new system. They are trying to find the right chemistry as far as line combinations and defense pairings are concerned. So let's all take a deep breath. And I also want to propose this question to everybody. And some of you will know the answer to this because some people are just, they have great memories, or they just, they're right on top of everything that the Rangers do. But off the top of my head, I can't tell you what the Rangers preseason record was last year. Does anybody, without checking, be honest about this, does anybody without checking remember definitively what the Ranger preseason record was last season? Maybe some of you do. Again, it's at least possible. I want to say it was probably something like 2-4 or like 2-3-1, maybe 3-3. For the most part, I do remember getting toward the end of the preseason last year and almost thinking that the Rangers kind of look bored by this and it's time to start the regular season already. So I don't think they had a great record. And like I said, it was somewhere in that ballpark of like 2-4 or 2-3-1. But be honest, how many of you really, really remember the Ranger preseason record last season? I'm willing to bet some of you for sure will. I'm willing to bet the majority do not. So we'll see how everything goes. Like I said, it is the preseason. The games don't count. And that's the silver lining here is that, obviously everything starts at 0 once the regular season begins. I also saw a stat that was interesting floating around on Twitter the other night. The Rangers, the last time they went to the Stanley Cup, obviously the 2013-2014 season, the Ranger record that year, and keep in mind, this is AV's first season as Ranger head coach, 2013-2014. The Ranger preseason record that year, 1-5. So clearly it's not the end of the world if you have a shaky preseason, if you don't win a lot of games in the preseason. Look, I'd love for the Rangers to be 4-1 right now instead of 1-4, but it's not going to doom them to failure this season if they have a little bit of a lackluster preseason, which is basically exactly what's happening right now. I understand, fans are getting a little bit restless right now, especially after the way that last season ended. But I think, just hang in there and hopefully, the Rangers can end the preseason on a positive against the Boston Bruins here tonight, and you can take some good things out of that game as you prepare for the start of the regular season. Only other thing that I really want to mention here, obviously the Rangers back in action against the Bruins. That's at 7:30 tonight. Dylan Duran has been sent back to the Hartford Wolfpack. He dressed for the Devils game, and he was in there as the backup to Jonathan Quick. Did not play. I think the reason the Rangers did this is they don't want to be in a spot where Igor Shesterkin has to play in both games of a back-to-back at the end of the preseason here. So what you do to make sure that doesn't happen is you make Igor a healthy scratch for the game against the Devils. You have Duran as the backup, and that way, if anything happens to Quick, Dylan Duran steps into the game rather than Igor Shesterkin. Now that we know Igor's starting this game tonight against the Bruins, that's the plan, and Jonathan Quick backs him up. So I think that's probably all that this was. I don't think the Rangers were looking to go with Duran instead of Quick to start the season or anything along those lines. But yeah, that's what happened. Dylan Duran now back with the Hartford Wolfpack and probably in line to make the majority of the starts for the Pack this season. But figure we can pretty much call it there. Once again, if you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's at LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thank you again, guys. I will see you next time.